I am going to start the rainbow string quilt in the top left corner with this one red rectangular block. And then I'm going to work my way this way to get all the other colors done. I am currently pressing red strips and other red bits of fabric ready to go, and I'll show you what to do. The method for doing this is the same, whether you are using paper that's a rectangle or a square, it does not matter. Any one of you who have seen my other string videos will already know what I'm talking about, but if you've never seen this before, I'll explain what I do. I did this black line thicker than I normally would just so you guys can see it a little bit, but it doesn't hurt to use Sharpie. You can even do a dark pencil line if you want. This paper I'm using is 8.5 by 11 newsprint weight. I bought a big whack of it off of Amazon. You could use old phone books, coloring books, whatever that is light, so you can tear it off. If you don't have that, just use regular old copy paper. It'll work fine. So what you have to do is get long strips for starters, because they got to go across the whole length. So you can't have some little bit, although you could sew 2 strips together and then do that. That would look cool too. I tend to just do one. Take your 2 strips you wanted to use, line them up, right sides together, and I have the black line facing me. And then rather than fiddle with the fabric, okay, that's going to be my seam, so we'll put it that way so my fabrics are lined up. It's just a little bit easier to see this way. This is what I find this works when I do it, so you all can try it and see what you think. Okay, lined up, and then I take the paper and I line it up on the fabric. So the back side of this anchor fabric is facing up, and I've got my line. It's about, here I'm going to scooch the camera on just a smidgen. Sorry about bumpy. There we go. It's about 1/4 inch in there, and it's about 1/4 inch in there. Now I'm going to pin just to make sure. If you want to, you could use a little bit of that glue basting stuff, whatever works for you. I like to put a couple pins in. I've got my sewing machine loaded with some red thread just so it matches up a bit. And this foot, it's one of those zigzaggy type foots. I like to use it because it makes it easier for me to follow the line. Because this black line, that is your seam line. And if you don't have a seam running right down the middle of your block, it's going to look dumb. The whole idea is to have precision in this part and vary the width so the rest of the block looks good. I'll show you what I mean as we go. So, sew on this line. Now, the other thing you need to do, 2.2 is the default setting for my sewing machine for the stitch length. I am going to go down to 1.5, just so it makes more punches. Right? More punches through the paper, easy for it to take off. That is also, I'm sorry if I already told you guys this, my brain's bleh today. That is a size 90 needle. It'll punch through bigger holes. It's not required, but I find it useful for doing this method. There we go. First seam sewn. You can press it over with a dry iron. I tend to just push it along with my finger. And I got one of these roller things, so I'm going to try and see if that helps it just move along a little bit better. Oh yeah, look at that. Good investment. Not bad. This might come in handy when I make the wolf. Okay, you get the idea. These little extra bits here, I'm just going to cut them off. They can be used again. When you start getting down to the corners, like this side, you're going to need shorter and shorter pieces of fabric. Once you have your block started, you just work your way further out. Take another piece, line it up on the edge of your fabric, and sew your 1/4 inch seam. Press it open, continue down. Same thing on the other side. After you have covered the entire paper pattern, block, whatever you want to call it, that you're using with your fabric. Use the paper size to trim off all the extra. And what I'm going to do next, just to make sure that everything stays where it's supposed to be, is I'm going to run a stay stitch around the whole outside, about 1/8 of an inch in, approximately. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just helps it stay together. I started the rainbow string quilt. I don't know, the light's a little bit odd, but I have one red block done, and then I have 2 red and orange blocks started. But I do need to get a few more orange fabrics, just like bits of scraps. I'll explain with the pattern in a second. I have a fair amount of that orange left that I just used for layer chops, and I have orange grunge from previous, but it's hard to tell on the pattern here, but see, this is the red block, and then these are the 2 half red and half orange. But if we go down, I need 1, 2, 3 full oranges, and 1, 2, 3, 4 half orange, half yellows. So I want to vary up my oranges a bit and not just use the same thing over and over again.